Chứ bố It's time.
Do you know about the community? Go through Sally.
It'll do. Starting.
Join. Delete it.
Yeah. Good evening and welcome to this evening's Licence and Regulatory Committee. Before we start the meeting, I'll make the open statement. In accordance with the Openness of Local Bodies Regulation 2014, this meeting is being live streamed and may otherwise be recorded, filmed, communicated on media platforms. The recording of this meeting will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. Both councillors and officers in attendance are reminded to make full use and speak daily into the microphones available at all times. A reminder that mobile phones should be turned off or put on silent mode. Those present at the meeting should refrain from taking telephone calls. Thank you. Apologies for absence.
Apologies for absence of previously Councillor Eaton, Councillor Flankford, and Councillor Kozlowski.
Thank you. Appointment of substitutes.
None have been received, Chair.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. None received, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting, may I sign?
No.
Thank you. Action list arising from the previous meeting on pages 7 to 12. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Lloydell.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think I made a comment to say thank you at the last meeting regarding the letters that went to the two government areas. But I would just like to raise an issue with the first one, the e-scooter and the transport. In the Mercury today, not today, in the Mercury on Monday, there was a half-page article about e-scooters and the increasing number of accidents that are taking place that have now become a serious concern for various areas and for the government, and it gives all the rules and regulations. Tonight, Chair, on the way here, I have seen 3 e-scooters, all of which are breaking the rules on every count, and one of them was actually a child on an electric e-scooter. Now, where we stand over that, I do not know, but I'd like to hand this in to you, Chair, because on Tuesday it was also reported that a 71-year-old lady was killed by an e-scooter, a 14-year-old driver on an e-scooter in Nottingham. So we are now having fatalities taking place. We here have brought this to the forefront and actually contacted the Minister of Transport over this. We have got a reply from them, but I think it's as a matter of urgency that we perhaps now ought to write to our MP to say, what is he doing to push forward this work on e-scooters? Because we're now having increasing accidents. Even yesterday, there was somebody riding an e-scooter in a school playground. Now, where do we stand over that? So I'd like to hand this in, but if we could actually now bring this to the front with our MP. We've got one of the Conservative councillors here. Perhaps she'll be able to raise it as well, because I think urgent action needs to be taken. And the government seem to be not responding quickly enough to what is happening on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I'm sure the group echo your comments, and certainly that will be handed in. Just before I take questions on that, you've probably noticed I have an empty space at the side of me. Mr. Gill is actually performing some work for Blaby District Council's planning, on which the Oban and Wigson Council will be paid for his time. And we felt that as most of the things on the agenda tonight are for noting, but that if there are any questions for him, they can be put forward if Mr. Wells can't answer them. Okay, so we'll move to Mrs. Lily Kaufman, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I echo what Councillor Lloyd-Dell has said. I don't know whether it's been mentioned, but also they are a fire risk as well. If they are placed in the wrong place or in a confined area, apparently batteries can set alight. So I think we've got an added problem. So when we do write to whoever writes to our MP, hopefully we will get a reply, that ought to be mentioned as well. Thank you.
Thank you. It will certainly go down for Mr. Gill on behalf of the council to write to them. Councillor Bolter.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Can we also write to the LGA as a body we belong to lobby them to do something about it? And also, I think as a council, we ought to point out that there is a possible fire risk with these things when they're being charged. So there must be a charge in a suitable location, not inside a building, not under the stairs, or anywhere else. I don't know whether environmental health might like to be involved in that one, but I'm sure the fire brigade would offer advice if need be. We have a problem at the moment with mobility scooters where people drive them into their lounges and try and charge them inside the building. That's another risk which we're doing as a housing department. So e-scooters also are a fire risk.
Thank you for your comments. I will make sure that all these comments are passed to Mr. Gill, and as I'm sure Mr. Wells will. Councillor Darling.
Interestingly, we've actually got Grant Shapps, the Transport Minister, coming to an event on the 7th of July. So it is something that I would happily raise with him then at that event, because he will be taking questions.
Thank you. Councillor Charlesworth.
On a different topic, we're all encouraged to use these things. See the popular, but they need to work. That's the problem. I mean, tonight's meeting is not in the Teams calendar to access. It's available on mod.gov, that's fine, but you know, we're all encouraged to use these things, but they need to work. I mean, it's got our group meeting down for Monday night, but no licensing meeting down for tonight. So perhaps IT can be asked to make sure the calendars are up to date, so we know where we are with meetings. You know my feelings on this subject.
Thank you for that. I presume that you did accept the invite to the meeting, so therefore it should have gone on the calendar. And again, I'm sure the officers here will make sure that that is noted and conveyed to the relevant department. Nothing else on the minutes, on the action list then? Okay, we'll move on. Petitions and deputations. Thank you. Licensing regulatory update. Mr. Wells, is that you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just going to share something with you if I'm working. Thank you very much. What I thought I'd do is two specific items that members wanted an update on. There's one that we're required to bring to quality of food. By way of updates on general stuff that's going on within the teams is, rather than do another report, in terms of a few slides, just to give you an overview of some of the work we've been doing. So, in terms of food, apart from the service plan, which we'll discuss later, There was a national Kinder egg recall due to salmonella in chocolate. I'm sure you may or may not be aware, but we're then required to contact all distributors, outlets to make them aware, and then visit to make sure they're not selling. Most of the places we went to were fully compliant, but there were some that we had to remind of their obligations. As you know, and it becomes a constant theme when I attend these meetings, we're examining options to increase capacity, particularly around food, because there are specific requirements of an officer in terms of competencies that the Food Standards Agency dictates. So at the moment, just so members are aware, we have joint working arrangements with Harborough. That is in terms of inspections, but it's also in terms of emergency powers. So if we need to act on something, close the premises, or take sort of formal action, we have their support on that. And we did mention briefly in the previous meeting, Natasha's Law. Is everybody familiar with Natasha's Law and the work that's been going on there? So this is around food allergens and awareness of food allergens, particularly in pre-packed food. So there was a lot of work that went on there, and we were successful in getting some money from DEFRA to support training programme for our officers to make sure we were fully informed. I know members like to know where we are with the selective licensing scheme. So another one of my areas. There's 807 properties in. Is there a question on the previous slide? Or was that all right?
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Wells. With regards to Natasha's Law, I think both councillors Bolter and myself have been contacted by a resident with whose child has a serious food allergy, and we have actually forwarded that to the environmental health team with regards to incorporating it into the notices. Yes. I wondered if you could just mention that, because I understand we've got new notifications going up in various parts of the borough on the parks and various places, and this is going to be included in that notification, am I right?
Yes.
So if you could just, I don't know, Chair, whether you know about this or not, but certainly the licensing group should know. Thank you, Mr. Wells.
Yes, that's no problem. It's something we are aware of, and we're working to communicate it as effectively as we can in all channels possible. So thank you. In terms of selective licensing, number of schemes in scope, number of properties in scope is at 807. We've now received 733 applications. There's 34 that are either exempt from applying at the moment for a number of reasons, or they're empty. We've issued 598 licences, so we're pushing through on that. And then notices of intent are those that we've issued on those who've not come back to us or communicated or responded. So that can lead ultimately to fines, which are quite significant. What we're trying to do at the moment is trying to develop some understanding as to why they're not communicating, why they're not coming to us. And we're looking at an inspection schedule, which means we'll start to do some door knocking to find out what's going on. And as you can see there, the total income value that we brought in so far is at £536,000.
Before you move on, we'll take questions for each category. Councillor Jeffrey Kaufman.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just trying to add up these figures and work out how the numbers work out, and I don't know how, I'm no good at sums, but if there's does the 807 included those with exemptions, or are they still renting properties? I was just wondering if you could take me through the figures and tell me how you get them, because if there are only 598 issued and 34 exemptions, is that 78 notices of intent? I don't think it is it?
So the notices of intent are those issued where there's been no contact whatsoever. Those that it doesn't add up to are those where may have had an application that's not suitable, so it's not acceptable, or we've got an application that's pending. So it has to be complete, the application, before we can register it. So the reasons of the anomaly between some of the figures is actually for those very reasons there. So actually some, we haven't had their application, or we've got an application that's incomplete, which aren't recorded separately on that table I've given you. Hopefully that clarifies it.
Councillor Bolter.
Just to put the record straight, Chair, I'd take an interest sometimes in this and sometimes I don't. The reason is Mr Gill says it's a general thing, I need to declare an interest. So that's the reason I'm not declaring an interest this evening, because it's not about an individual property or anything else. So just to put the record straight.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Carter.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was also looking at the figures and interpreting them in a particular way, so perhaps you can confirm I've understood this correctly. Number of rented properties, 807. Total applications and exemptions comes as 767. So that means that 95% of the properties have either made an application or have been given an exemption or do not need to make an application. So we're 40 properties short. Then you move down to notices of intent, and we appear to have issued 78. I'm interpreting that as all 40 who haven't made an application or made an exempt, they have received a notice of intent, and a further 40 or 38 properties have received a notice of intent, which has woken them up and they've taken action on it. Is that a correct interpretation?
Absolutely spot on. Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Right. So therefore, I think our selective licensing team are to be commended for getting 95% success rate at this point in the process.
Thank you, and I will feed that back, and I'll try and make the figures a bit clearer. But I just wanted to give you a sort of like snapshot of information at this time. So thank you for that.
Useful, thank you. He's cleverer than me.
Another part of the private sector housing team is the Green Homes Grant. There's been some publicity in the members' bulletin recently about this. These are the grants which are around loft, cavity wall, solar panels for low-income families to try and improve energy performance. So there's a LAD scheme, which is a local authority delivery scheme. So as LAD 2 is £280,000 we've got. Currently we've got, as it says there, 39 applications, 27 retrofits booked in and 17 completed. The current scheme, which we've also got, so that's running now until August, September time. The scheme that we've got confirmation of 480,000 on top of that is basically for exactly the same sort of work, but also we're looking at external wall insulation because that's more costly. So we have to tender for it because of the size of the contract to get successful contractors, and this week we will award that contract to a successful tenderer. And the work programme is between now and the end of March to deliver that. In addition, we've been successful to get the HUG, which is the programme of works for off-gas properties. So these are electric-only properties. And some of the work is around there is about other fuel, making the electric more cost-effective, and again, applying the same principles around loft cavity and solar if it's relevant. So I think the message there is we've been really, really effective at getting this money in, and there's a lot of work going on to make sure we can spend it with those timescales because we've been told there may be further money coming down. And the good thing is it does support low-income families. So anybody below 30,000 as a total income for the family, all means tested benefits can apply for this, and they get assessed, and we literally run it through simple criteria, and the work carries on. So, and we organise all that for them. So it's not difficult for them in terms of providing obstacles. So a real good picture there.
Can we thank the team for being successful? It's nice to know that we're actually managing to get grants into the council to help our residents. So if you can thank the team for their effort.
It's appreciated, thank you very much. And I think the good thing then is sort of it's about batting above our weight. If you look at the size of amount of money in there, it's more than some of the neighbouring districts. So that's a real positive. We'll come on to air quality in the report if you don't mind. What I wanted to show you here was a bit of data that we're starting to get from the new station on Blaby Road. So this is the junction of Blaby Road and Canal Street by the college there and outside the cycle shop. I think there's two figures here. So that one is half term, one that's up on the screen now, and the previous one was the week before that. I just wanted to compare the two. One to show you there is a reduction when schools are shut. I think the other thing I wanted to point out is the bold line is the initial measurements we're getting for Wixton when compared with Burton, Coventry, Leicester I need my glasses for some of this, and other big cities. So it's a bit concerning that we're getting these high levels. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. But I think the real positive in here is that we're now getting this data through, which we weren't getting before. So, and we'll talk a bit more about that when we get to the air quality report, please, if that's okay.
Sorry, Councillor.
Sorry.
Lloyd, are you happy to wait till we did come to the main?
Well, no, I just wanted to comment on this air quality, Chair, because if you remember, Chair, we had to fight tooth and nail at planning to get this monitoring system put in on the Blaby Road when the new development went on at Wicks and Liddell. Now, they've been very successful in that area, but as a result, there has been a huge increase of traffic going through that area. And if you remember, Chair, we also sit on planning, we were told by the highways that more congestion along this area won't matter because it's already congested. Now, this goes to show that it is having a real increase in air quality management, a detrimental increase in air quality, and that residents along that area will be, as an effect, a result of this, affected by this. So this is a very important piece of information that we should be using to try and clean up the traffic management along there. And as for highways saying it doesn't matter, it does matter, it's very important. So I do appreciate that this, it was frightening. I wasn't sure what I was actually looking at when I saw that black line. But you're quite right, we have got higher levels than some of the inner cities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton.
Now, Mrs Lloyd was picked on half the story. The other half was the reason it's high in that location is because they wouldn't allow a bus lay-by in the development. So the bus stops on the road, nobody can get by, traffic all backs up with all the engines running right outside the monitoring station. So it's going to be high because of standing traffic. If only they let the bus lay-by go ahead, traffic would have continued and we wouldn't get a to stop there. So I don't know what we can do about that at the present time. It's not high enough yet for declared air quality management area, but it may reach that figure in the very near future. We've not got the number of buses now that come out of there because the garage is now gone. But we've still got buses idling in that location, sometimes two. Diesel engines aren't the most friendly for the air quality. So it's an ongoing project, and how we're going to resolve that at the present time, I don't know. But I need very careful monitoring on that. Fortunately, I don't think there's any residential properties within 100 metres of where the air quality management station is. There are shops, but I don't believe there's any flats over those shops that could affect residents' health. All right.
I'm Rick.
Thank you, Councillor Bolter. I'm sure that as a committee we will be keeping our eye on it, likewise officers. Mr Wells.
Yes, thank you very much. So licensing, just headlining on some of the stats for the last quarter, full quarter, and then next time round I'm hoping to bring back updates. Some of them are really about changes in legislation, some of them are about changes in guidance. I don't expect them to be significant changes, maybe animal welfare more than the others, but they may be added to as well as we come across it. Because when my role, if you remember a previous meeting, I said I need to go through the policy, start looking at them, see if they're current, because actually if we're hanging a hat on something that's not, we had a driver, we revoked his licence, he was being abusive with an operator, we have recordings of that abuse, we've interviewed him, after revoked his licence, he's now appealed to the Magistrates Court in a few weeks. Drink spiking in needles, we've had a Home Office letter, which I can try and, how do I share something else? Adam, sorry, bear with me 1 second. Well, thank you. So if I then go into, now I do apologise for the I'm trying to, in that, the Right Honourable Kit Malthouse, is that right? Yeah, sorry. So the matter of drink spike, can you see? I don't want you to read that. I do apologise. Happy to send it round afterwards. So I think with the drink spike and the needle issue, they just wanted you to bring me to your attention as a licensing committee that the Home Office is working closely with colleagues across government and law enforcement to try and understand and tackle the issue. We recognise a spiking, particularly facilitated by a needle, can be distressing and frightening. Although not all of them occur in licensed premises, they've said to us they're happy for us to use our powers that we currently have, the licensing objectives, if you like, to tackle any issues that might arise on that. So they're confident that those powers are sufficient to allow this to approach in terms of premises licence and working with the police in terms of other issues that might affect us in the communities out there. They can call for, so you can call, we can call for a review of a premises licence if we know there's a particular problem. So what they're saying is actually they're looking at developing this in terms of whether they need any specific legislation, but they're going to be very much looking at data and information to support any decision they take. But in the meantime, work with the police, do what you're doing, and bring that through as one of the topic areas. So I wanted to pull that to your attention as well.
Councillor Lloyd.
Yes, I'm sorry, Chair. I will be quiet in a moment. Thank you very much for that. That's a very interesting piece of information, and once again, being proactive here in the borough. But I wanted to just pick up on the animal welfare. I was listening to a radio programme on Tuesday, and there was increasing concerns about, because of the increase in the cost of living, people can no longer afford to keep their pets, especially pets which need to be kept in enclosed things like reptiles, amphibians, snakes. And a lot of them are now handing them over, if they are responsible people, to the RSPCA or what, but there are a number of them being abandoned and just discarded. Do we have any information? Are we seeing any of that in the borough? And could we please keep a watching brief on that? And if there are, reporting back to our next committee.
Then you have to take that, Chair. So I think the similar question was asked about dogs last time. So there was a sudden spike in dogs being abandoned and kicked out and left homeless. And that seems to reduce now. So I think that initial surge has been and gone. In terms of sort of other animals, reptiles and so forth, we haven't had any particular issues reported to us here or anything that we're concerned about at the moment. But absolutely, we will keep it on the radar and we'll keep you informed if that changes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kaufman.
Well, the question I was going to ask is almost related to that. Who requires an animal welfare licence? What sort of business or trade or?
An individual business, so it can be like a boarding establishment, cattery, kennels, that type of place.
Well, Chair.
Dangerous wild animals.
Animal boarding licences are listed.
Yeah.
I can understand that one. It's just that a new business has opened up in Rosemead Drive in Oadby, next to Lily's Beautician, but she doesn't need to go. But what do they do there? Animal ID or something?
It's got on the placard that it's dog fertility. So I'm not quite sure whether they need a licence or whether it's been inspected or anybody been in there. But the window is all blanked out, and it all looks a little bit strange to me. So maybe somebody could just look into it to see if they actually do need a licence to do dog fertility.
I wasn't sure whether it was listed under animal boarding or animal welfare licence or one of those.
Yes, it's something we're aware of as well, because actually we dealt with the planning application and made it quite clear on there that they would need a licence because if they're doing anything to do with grooming or keeping dogs or pets, then yes. So the animal welfare embraces all of that. So we still issue licences, but we're working on a policy that's a few years old. I shouldn't say out of date. A few years old, and I want to get it updated, so we're actually being really robust about that. But I'm happy to pick that up and confirm if they're now operating, they are compliant with the law. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Can I just ask, these licences, are they like licences that hairdressers have? They only have to apply once and it lasts forever? Or are these the type that need to be renewed regularly?
They need to be reviewed because we need to inspect.
Thank you.
Councillor Charlesworth.
Yeah, more or less on that point actually. It would be nice to have all the data of current licensed premises that we've got in Obion, Wigston and South Wigston, just to see how many we've actually got, because I'm pretty sure everything we've got we're not getting in, if you see what I mean. It may be some significant amount of money, we don't know. But we need to know that these licences, are they issued for 12 months? I mean, I used to run a burger van upon the estate and I was supposed to be charged every year. But the onus, I understand, is on the licensee to come forward. There was an issue with the corner shop near me as well. That was a fairly big cockle on our part. And that poor chap had to produce bank records and stuff to prove that he'd paid more than he should have done anyway. So it just would be nice to drill down a bit to see what we've got. Are they all licensed? Are they all paying? Because I'm pretty sure we're not. It'd just be nice to know, really.
I'm happy to report that in the next meeting, if that's okay. Thank you. And then finally, certainly not less or least, environmental health as a review. There's a lot of work going on around, just to make you aware. So Saturday we've had problems with noise, so we served an abatement notice. We've had a significant filthy and verminous case, somebody living in squalor, and we've helped them, and now only today we just completed that, got everything cleared out, got them the support they need, and hopefully it's prevented a lot more further complaints. As you know, we have a duty around welfare burial, so we dealt with 3 of those in the last quarter, where the person unfortunately dies in our area and there's no identified next of kin. We have to pick up the costs for that and then pursue that against the estate if we find one. Some of you may be aware there's a Midland Mainline electrification project about to start. So we've been consulted on the initial outline of the programme. There's nothing detailed yet. So what they're intending to do in our area is from Midland Cottages through to what I crudely call Kilby Bridge, just beyond there, is where they can put in these electrification lines, which is effectively means they're going to put into the ground 50-metre intervals, sort of stanchions that stand up to carry these lines. The problem with that is that can cause a lot of vibration. A lot of the work will be done out of hours, as you might imagine, because it's a live line. So you're looking between 11 at night and 7 in the morning, and you're looking at them vibrating and hammering in these piles. So met with, I know that Councillor Charles was also met with them, SPL, the company, who are dealing with this, demanded of them more mitigation measures, some understanding of the sound environment in the areas they work in, where the noise sensitive receptors are. They are now proposing to hold some drop-in sessions, as they call them, if you like, consultation days. I mean, say consultation, it's actually going to happen anyway. It's just as much influence as we can impart to try and control it and minimise any disturbance, certainly over the summer period. So I'll make sure through the members' bulletin, if anybody's interested in particular, let me know. You know how to contact me. I'll try and keep you updated when I get more and more information. So we've got that link now. We've got an outline. I'm just after a lot more detail to reassure me and therefore the residents that actually it is going to work in a way that we can tolerate. So,
Thank you, councillor Charlesworth.
Yes, the residents all received notification of this from Network Rail. Who knows, they may be on strike, so it won't bother.
Probably true.
Yes. But no, the chap from SPL, a chap named Scott, came to visit us. All the residents had a good conversation with him, and they are going to put in various mitigation schemes in terms of a sound barrier across the track. But there will be some disturbance, but you live next to a Midland main line, you expect engineering work. So, but he seemed a good chap, and we've managed to twist his arm and get various other bits of work done to roads and pavements and hedges, and he's spending government money, so he doesn't care. So he's agreed as mitigation to get other things sorted out. It'll make life easier for the residents. So, touch wood.
Thank you.
Key you in full, sorry.
Councillor Dahl.
Yeah, can you expand a bit on the Satya abandonment notice, please? The first one on there.
All I can say is that events aren't being controlled in accordance with the conditions we've applied. So they've had conditions placed on them and they've ignored them, so we've served an abatement notice. The next step will be to look at whether they continue to trade or not. We don't really want to do that, so we're giving them the opportunity to come back to us about that specifically. If you want to talk outside of committee in terms of detail, I'm quite happy to.
But they've been ignoring for quite a bit now, is it? They've been ignoring.
No, it's been, they've had a noise limiter installed. So the noise limiter is designed to cut off power if they exceed a certain noise level. They've been effectively bypassing that limiter so they can get away with being noisy. Hence why we've served the abatement action. The abatement action is a clear offence if they don't comply, or we can remove the equipment or cease working or having any music in future. So that's to put, if you like, draw the line in the sand and then say if it happens thereafter, we'll have officers out there. So
Thank you.
no problem.
Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I think John's just about to start on this one, the dog warden service.
Oh yes.
I can't remember the last time I saw a dog ward. Well, I walked miles with my beast. Never seen anybody on the parks, Butler Park, Blaby Road Park, never see anybody. Dog fouling is not decreasing, it's increasing. And I'm just wondering what we're paying for. Have we got any figures at all about how people visit the borough and what they're doing? And we used to have a chart, what they've done in the borough, how many hours spent in the borough, what they've been doing, but over the last 2 years that's disappeared.
The contract they've got only requires something like 6 hours of patrol in a week. So that's it. And then they deal with all our strays. So, but what I can do, I have got the information, is I can either forward that through the members' bulletin or I can bring a report back to the next committee here. I don't mind.
I think it might be on the members' bulletin. I think we're all interested in seeing what we're paying for. When's the contract up for renewal? It must be up for renewal shortly.
As per the last item on there, it's as of April 23, so it finishes in March
Yes.
next year.
So we're going out for tendering now, are we? So
Well, actually, in terms of tendering, I've put tender in there. It was tendered before, but the actual value of the contract is well below tendering rates. So we could just do it on 3 quotes. But I think what would be useful, and my plan is leading up to that, is to get your input as to what you'd like to see in terms of a dog warden service for the cost. Because the thing is, if they provide stray service between certain hours, emergency, they deal with dangerous dogs for us, they deal with noise complaints from dogs, barking dogs, they deal with the patrolling I mentioned, it costs us £5,000 a year. We can't compete with that at all. I think if we're realistic in our expectations to what we need, we can get good value out of a contract in the future. So I think the important thing is that we're perhaps clear on what we want out of the service, because if we're to employ someone, we can never employ somebody for that. So I'd probably welcome your views on that at the right time.
I'd just like to know we're actually getting what we're paying for. Has anybody else seen a dog warden?
Thank you, Mr Bolter.
No. QED.
Councillor Lily Kaufman, please.
Thank you, Chair. This seems a really, really good idea, this free microchipping event, because for some people that can be really expensive when they've got a pet. Can we ensure that it is really, really well advertised? That would be brilliant. And I presume we can afford to do this, can we?
It's been provided for free
Oh,
to
wonderful.
us
Yeah.
as residents. So they'll come and join in one of our events or our like a party we might have in a park and things like that, and they'll provide a free microchip to you as a dog owner.
Yep, that sounds absolutely brilliant.
Thank you very much for that presentation. It's
Just before, if I just may, can we have the date of when that will be available? Because some of us may want to put it out and let residents know in the publication that goes out regularly.
Thank you, Mr Wells, for that comprehensive update. I'm sure members appreciate the fact that you've included so many things in it, and it will be nice to see that a similar update is provided at meetings. So thank you for that. We'll move on to item 9, which is air quality update, June 2022, on pages 21 to 26.
Thank you, Chair. I'll give a very brief overview because I know a lot of you are running for air quality. So, just make it. Sorry. We have a duty to review and assess air quality in our area, like all districts and borough councils. We produce an annual status report each year. And as you know, there are no air quality management areas currently. We do use various techniques. So one of the key things for me when I was taken on was around extending that. And I know there was work done before my time. So now we use diffusion tubes. We have a real-time monitor that we talked about previously on Blaby Road. And there is an additional monitor on the A6 called a Zephyr, which is just a solar. You'll see a solar panel. It's outside of pin 158 along that road. That was as part of a joint project with the City Council, so we just need to reactivate that, service it, commission it and get it up and running, and we can get data from there as well. So each of them serves a different purpose. Diffusion tubes provide us with monthly data, and they give us indicative comparisons against the objectives. The one on Blaby Road is what we call a Chemiluminescence Monitor, so it gives us real-time continuous nitrogen dioxide measurement. And it's the reference method used in the UK when we're measuring against objectives. The A6 one is called a Zephyr, and it's a compact monitor which does NO2, nitrogen oxide, ozone, and particulates as well, which the others are missing. So my view is that we've got real-time measurement now in 2 of the poorest air quality areas in our borough. So my priorities for the current year is ensuring air quality is a key consideration in future planning considerations. So thank you for your support, Councillor Lloyd, on that. Making sure we host the data I've shown you earlier on a public website. So it's open and free for all to view, and it's within half an hour of the time that it's been pulled away. So it's as live as it can be. Work on campaigns and work projects in areas of known poor air quality, and doing what we can do as an organisation to reduce our carbon footprint. So Appendix 1 gives us the diffusion tube data. So this is the one for the monthly. And basically we apply a bias correction at the end of the year, which the government give us, and it then compared against the objective level to see whether there's any triggers there. The Appendix 2 is just to give you the last results we had from the monitor with the City Council when we did their project. And then one of the most exciting things for me, I think, and probably for members here, is this Blaby Road project. So what we're looking at doing here is working with schools, colleges, public health at county, our active together team, to see how we can influence and make decisions along that corridor on Blaby Road. You've seen how many monitors we've got down there. You've seen, and you've already mentioned earlier about the level of congestion, and it is primarily around congestion. Get highways around the table, get the schools to get some interest in it, and get some key projects running there in the current year, maybe the year after that. I'd just like to make members aware, and I was only made aware recently, that the incidence of asthma and viral wheeze, as they term it now, in the under 15s on Blaby Road is disproportional to anywhere else other than the city. So we are the highest per population count in that area. So they're putting a lot of it down. So public health question it purely simply around, is it to do with the road corridor? Is it to do with the school? So the kids are all going to the school. And of course, catchments for schools are massive, aren't they? They're huge. So, but I think that's a real trigger. So therefore we can tease in some public health money. We may be able to get some developer contributions moving forward. We may be able to sideline some of our budget towards putting. So to give you two examples of real positives that come from this elsewhere were, I'll find it quickly, apologise. One was around kids doing a art programme and a presentation around what do they understand by air quality, what health problems can it cause, what can you do about it. So they're doing that to their peers. So you get year 5 kids actually performing and acting and doing it as a bit of a study work and bringing it forward. And then if I can show you from a distance, I know there's a distance from here, there are some of these sort of things that can be done. So for example, it puts these short sensor or smart sensor air quality displays out. So it tells you whether your air quality is good, poor. The kids put one at home, the kids put some at school. They're left for a short period of time. They then are involved in how it's analysed. They get all the information together, and then they've got a better understanding. So they can then talk to their friends and kind of say, have you cycled in today? Have you got a ride? Is your car being left idling? All these sort of things. So I think there's some real good ideas. It's just a question of having the time and getting it all together. So that's a real exciting project. Looking forward to doing. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I find it very interesting, and certainly with the asthma cases, because when I was mayor and one of the charities that I fundraised for was the fact that there were higher cases of asthma and children's leukemia in Oadby than in the whole of Leicestershire. And, you know, I'm not saying it is because I'm not an expert or whatever, but looking at air quality in the borough, it does sort of make me wonder whether the two are related. So as the information and the data comes out, it will be good for us to monitor and keep an eye on it. Councillor Carter, please.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at paragraph 4.4, I think I would agree with you, Mr. Wells. That is an exciting development, but I think a very necessary development. If I read the data correctly, if we look at diffusion tubes in Appendix 1, it suggests that the diffusion tubes on Canal Street, Station Street, close to the monument station, come out at 37 units when the trigger is the objective level is 40 micrograms per cubic metre, and that is an annual mean. But I think it strikes me, looking at your earlier presentation from the actual data, the situation is slightly more alarming. I think Councillor Lloyd had pointed out that the decline is higher than anything else, but also the alarming sense in which it peaks, not to 40, but up to 60, 70, 80 units. So I think a very necessary piece of work. So yes, I hope that can be progressed forward and address what is the perception that is contributing to poor health in the area. But my other observation is if I look at Appendix 1, there is also the diffusion tube at Victoria Court on the A6. And that's not so far behind the one in Canal Street. And indeed, when I look at whichever one is Appendix 4, we've got a lot of data about the traffic corridor along Station Road, Lady Road, which is giving us data to cause us alarm, to trigger the project that you're talking about in 4.4. But I'm now slightly concerned about what is happening on the A6. And it's interesting what Councillor Broadley said. She didn't say increase of childhood leukemia in Wigston. She said in Oadby. And I just wonder, I'm not quite sure where 178 Zephyr Monitor is, 178. But Victoria Court is not actually at the, what's the word I'm looking for? The most challenging area. If there was a passive tube 200 yards up the road, around the junction between the A6, the end of the parade, Stoughton Road, Regent Street, that is where you get an awful lot of idling traffic. And I just would ask the question, is there anything we can do to focus in on that particular area of the borough? Because I think that, to me, looking at this data could be a cause for concern.
Yeah, I'd happily consider that. Diffusion tubes are used because they're quick, easy, they're cost effective. You're quite right, the A6 one was put in at the bottom near the racecourse end at the roundabout because it was with the city. They wanted to know traffic flow coming in and out, so they wanted a comparison of data, presumably with another site leading onto London Road, ultimately into the town centre, city centre. Our view is that, yeah, Victoria Court is obviously the residents who live there. It is further up, as you know. So I'm really keen that we get this Zephyr up and running, see what it's telling us, because we can get data daily, and then we can explore whether, and I'm happy to put another diffusion tube in, no problem whatsoever. And I think that what the problem is, we've continued to do what we've done, but we've not actually gone the next step, which is what I want us to do, is actually understand the data, so what it's telling us and what we need to do. So thank you for that feedback.
Yes, I would welcome if there was a passive tube, diffusion tube further up the hill. I just wonder whether the Zephyr unit is giving an accurate picture of what is actually most challenging area.
Councillor Kaufman, please.
Thank you. It's really good that the children have got involved in this. I mean, they're a pressure group to the parents. But it's the adults that are doing this. They are the ones that are polluting. Within your group of people talking to one another, like county council and the schools and everybody else, have you included the bus companies? Because I think it would be quite good to know when bus companies are going to make their buses go electric. And I'm sure that would help a great deal, whether they've got some sort of time scale as when they think that they're all going to go electric.
I'm happy to do that, and we've got the initial step is to get county highways involved to sort of understand whether there's any road improvements or changes planned in the foreseeable future, given the amount of development that's gone on. But I'll take that back. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Councillor Lloydon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. With this corridor through the Blake Road area and going through past Wigston College and on down, is there any way we could have this extended, this monitoring and a diffusion tube at the end of Moat Street at the junction with Newton Lane? We've now got the development there, which is now over 1,200 houses on Newton Lane. And the corridor, the traffic does continue all the way through. and then from Newton Lane down, and it all converges at that junction. And if anybody's tried to be there at busy times, don't go there. And I did wonder whether there is any way, because I noticed on the map here, there's no management there, there's no regulation, nothing being monitored. Whether we could actually have a look at that, please. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Charlesworth.
Yeah, just in relation on Mrs. Kaufman's point, the bus service, Arriva are doing 2 routes with their electric vehicles now, one of them being the 47-48 service. So they're trialling it to see how to get, I mean, these buses are very expensive at the moment, but the more that they bought, the cheaper it gets, but it has started.
Councillor Bolter.
Thank you. Yes, the Victoria Court has always been a problem for air quality, got the way through. Going back since first you started using tubes, which is 15 years ago, must be.
Yeah.
What I'm really asking now is, we've got the new prison being built in Blaby district, but the road is in Opium Wixton. We were told that when it went ahead, that the traffic lights would be synchronised all the way through up to Newton Lane. I just want to make sure that's still in the programme to be done. Because if we can keep the traffic flowing, it will help our air quality. One thing they didn't take into account was the pedestrian push button on the traffic lights. They forgot about that. But if we can get the main traffic lights coordinated, so that if one's on green, they're all on green, you get traffic moving through at 30 miles an hour, 20, whatever you choose, that may well help the air quality. But I don't know how far we've got with that, with the latest planning that keeps messing around. It's done by Blaby District, not by us. But we could have a look at that. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you. And again, another very good report. Like you say, this has been going on for some time, and it is possibly time that we move forward and gather a lot more information and to explore what areas that we can improve the air quality. The report is down for noting, so no vote is required. Item 10 is the food service plan 2022-23, pages 27 to 33.
Thank you, Chair. So, quick overview, same format as last year, because I think that's what we received. We got to the bottom of the data, as we talked about, and we will report on a financial basis. So, just to avoid confusion, and we're required to report from April to the following March. So, if I say 21-22, I don't mean both years, it's the financial year. During 21-22, priority was always to recover after the pandemic. So we spent a lot of time triaging new businesses, active work following complaints, and higher risk inspections returned. We've worked hard with the FSA, the Food Standards Agency, to achieve their recovery plan. So they've set out 2 phases of that. The first was the the next one is like the 18 months of which this year now falls into. They're hoping by that time there'll be a new food standards model in how we deliver food services going forward. So obviously I'll be informed on any changes there. So the main stats are outlined in paragraph 1.3. As I mentioned earlier, staffing still remains a challenge, but we've managed to establish some very effective reciprocal arrangements. So we do help Harbour out on some of the work they do. And without those and our own senior officer here, we couldn't achieve what's been set out. So we need to be aware of that. And it is an ongoing risk, which I'm looking to find a long-term solution to. Key findings, this is again 21-22, high turnover of businesses, so some came back, some changed the way they operated, some stopped working. And at that time, an improvement, because we're tackling a high risk, there was an improvement noted, as you'll see from the stats, in hygiene standards. Although I would add that some haven't been inspected for 2 years, given that. So they were still marked as if it was 2 years ago. 22-23, so priorities for this year. I'll summarise the whole appendix for you in a couple of sentences. So target those who are the poorer performers, those that really we think may have deteriorated through a lack of intervention in the last couple of years. And there's more detail there of the specific intervention, business profile and the compliance levels we've got in the appendix. Just a couple of points of note from inspections we've conducted since April this year. And it's not meant as tongue-in-cheek, these are real problems. So a lot of businesses are getting rid of non-essential staff. So you're finding people who would have been responsible for waste receptacles, probably looking at the cleaning schedules and stuff like that, are no longer employed. They can't afford to employ them. They've gone. So that's its own challenge. And I think even more worryingly is that fridges and freezers are not operating at the temperatures we like. They're being turned up slightly because of costs of electric. So a couple of things we've picked up. I don't know, it sounds, and then the other sort of bit of information I've got back is that some of the ones that were perhaps a lower risk are becoming a higher risk because of those factors and because we've not been there. So if we're not constantly on the case, if you like, it's sort of like, oh, we can get away with it, we'll do this. But just a few things there, give it a bit of real flavour for you. So happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. It is difficult because we don't have the staffing levels to complete all the checks on these premises that we require. It is something that as a committee we did ask for, is that Labour put out on a fairly regular basis a chart of the ratings in their area. And it's quite a nice looking chart as well. It's something that is, it hits you, so you know. We have in the past attempted to do so with Oban Wigston. I can only speak personally, I didn't feel it had the same impact because it wasn't in your face, if you like, for people to see. But it is something that I would like environmental health to have a look at and to report these sort of things on social media on a regular basis, that to give the public the confidence that as a council we are looking after their health and making sure that where they buy their food and whatever from is safe. So I think that really, I understand the difficulties, but it would be nice if we were a little higher profile on social media sites with it. Councillor Charlesworth.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a few points. I'm glad to see that we've had 1,900 from DEFRA for allergen familiarisation, because it's those food businesses at the bottom of the table that really struggle with allergens. And that's worrying. I mean, I know there are 14 categories, and I can name them all, but I won't bore you. But, you know, I went into the Blueberries chipping the other day, and while I was waiting for my chips, I said, how many categories of allergens are there? Not a clue. Not a clue. That's worrying. And you only want one Natasha for our reputation to go in the bin. So, you know, I understand recruitment is a problem. It says in one point in the adverts, you say that, but I've just looked at our website and the staff intranet, and there is no advert for a food inspection officer, which is worrying. I know we've got this arrangement with Harborough, using a couple of their people, but we need to get something in place to catch up, or at least deliver the plan that you've put down there. And can you guarantee me that you will, by March 23, have achieved all your goals?
I think probably misunderstood the report in the sense that what we've done is we shape what we can deliver around what resource we've got. The advert for an EHO in food, we advertised for 8, nearly 9 months, and we didn't have one qualified applicant apply. So we withdrew the applicant because we were paying for it, and we looked at exploring other things, which is where we've got Harbour on board now in terms of both emergency support, which we will always need, and cover for holidays and sickness, but also actually getting the inspections done. So what we've effectively brought in is we have a 0.6 of an officer who just does food work, senior competent food person, does nothing else, and then we have 2 officers from Harborough who will do in a quarter the equivalent of 2 officers' work, but over a concentrated period, all relating to priorities I set out, which are the poorer performers. Last year it was high risk, this year it's poorer performers. So, and that's all the FSA is asking us to do at the moment. They're asking us to go and visit every single premise. They're just saying, right, high risk, we've done those last year. This year, where are your poor performers? And the poorer performers are slightly different to the high risk because they're the ones that just don't comply or are on the verge of not complying. And that's where we're to focus our energies. So I have no regard to what you used to do. It's a different world now until such time as we revise the system. So that's what they're asking us to do. So we can comfortably do that with the resource we've got. The risk is if the arrangement falls over from Harborough or a member of staff here leaves. That's the big risk. But again, a food competent person, they're all going in the private sector and they're all charging phenomenal rates, which I wouldn't advise you charge. So that's why I've set that arrangement up as more cost effective to us.
That was going to be my next question. Is recruitment a salary problem?
I'll give you an answer. So an EHO here would be at highest paid £25 an hour, £75 if you have a company deliver it, or other EHOs are leaving local government to go and work for agencies who can place them for £75 an hour. That's the minimum.
Okay.
And my view is we're getting more. We're paying them a reasonable rate, don't get me wrong, but we're paying them a rate that is related to risk. So if it's a routine inspection, we pay them a certain amount, and we're paying per premise. So we've got some control on it.
Right.
So if it takes them 2 hours to inspect, they only get a certain amount. It's not that they're paid by the hour, in which case they can have a sandwich in the car and ring the husband up and do whatever. It is per premise, and that premise is rated by us. So we know there's a shed load of work in it, so therefore it's going to take you 4 hours, so therefore we have to pay accordingly. But that gives me an exercise of control on that, otherwise it could escalate, as I'm sure you know.
Okay.
We'll just say not only ring the husband, but maybe ring the wife.
Sorry.
Councillor Lloydell.
Thank you, Chair. You said earlier on, Mr Wells, that a number of businesses are getting rid of non-essential staff. What's the criteria then for non-essential staff when the people that you were referring to, in my opinion, are essential to the health and well-being of the business that they are working for? And if you're getting rid of people that are sorting out the waste and the refuse and looking to maintain the fridges, these are essential workers. So I can't understand why they're putting their business at risk by getting rid of them.
Yeah, the term, I'm sorry, I probably used it correctly, is that the view is that they're non-essential in the business eyes, not our eyes. So the businesses have said, we need to cut back. How do we save money? We can't afford to run. So what they've done is they've taken their lot frontline staff, then perhaps that's a better way of putting it. So unless you're a waitress, unless you're a chef, if you had a role to do the things you said, then actually we'll reconsider whether we need you or not. So our risk and our priority and our problem at the moment is reinforcing the messages that the cleaning, the temperature control, the hygiene standards are absolutely critical to your success here, not whether you make enough money. Because if you haven't got a licence to operate and there's a problem, you're not going to get anywhere. So, sorry, the term was used as a non-essential, meaning that was the business view, because they said to us, we've got rid of our non-essential stuff, so we don't do any cleaning anymore. There's one case like that. So we've had to correct them on that. We see them as absolutely key, because without them, we can't run a business. So.
Thank you, Chair. You're looking at Councillor Corfman as though you wanted to come in, did you?
I had my hand up before, I didn't know whether I was on your list or not.
No, you weren't, but you did look as though you wanted to speak.
Things. I just wondered, since we've left the European Union and we seem to have our own standards, has anything changed as far as environmental health is concerned, or are there changes in the pipeline that may affect us, number one? And number two, do I understand it correctly, we're using Harborough District as a backup and we're using their officer services, and I understand the reason why, and we're paying whatever the arrangement rate is to pay for those. That's good. Well, then I then go back to your query. How many hours do we have to hire out Mr. Gill in order to get the money back for environmental health? Nobody knows.
Or you could ask Mr Gill that question himself.
No, but are there any liable changes that are going to happen because of the change in legislation since the European Union seem concerned that they don't want to start eliminating from this country uninspected going into Europe? Is that because we are changing the levels of inspection and safety?
Can I do the reverse? So I'll come to the harbour arrangement. So the harbour arrangement is cheaper than us recruiting to the post that's vacant. So that is more than cost effective. It's less than it would normally cost. Going back to rules and regulations, there are something like over 100,000 rules and regulations that need to be changed as a result of Brexit. So it's work in progress. A lot of what we, in terms of food, undertake is set out in European directives, which are being constantly changed, but it's a little bit at a time. So it will gradually feed in. When there's a major shift, we'll let you know. So this new service model that the FSA are proposing is something that's been set up specifically with England in mind. That's not proposed till the middle of 2023. So that would be the first bit of substantial change. But there are so many, it's unreal. But a lot of legislation remains as is. In terms of pollution control as well, a lot of that was European-led, along with air quality, so we might see some changes there in the future. But thank you for raising it, it's a really good point.
Thank you, Councillor Carter.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was just looking at page 33, table 2. I guess you can read that two different ways. I'd like to take a positive view and say we've got 398 premises in our borough that are graded satisfactory, good or very good. And in fact, with the majority of those in the very good category. Unfortunately, there are 5 there that fall into categories of graded 1 and 2. Just only 5 of them, presumably they're on your radar for special attention. Yes.
And if I may elaborate and just add to that, these are based on the last time inspected, so there may be some in the satisfactory and the good level who might not be there anymore. So the compliance is good on the face of it, but I'm very mindful and I'd like to tell you that actually these are not, if they're not only inspected every year, they don't have to be by law, but there may be some others. But yes, those 5 in particular, we're on their case, as it were. Yeah.
Councillor Bolter.
Being picky whenever. Look at page 30. Where's the delivery plan? Doing it for thousands of years. It should be 2022, not 2222, and dash 233. So can we please correct that before that goes any further? The other one is, yes. The food premises seem to have cut back on the staff who used to tidy up the areas around their premises. We have an increasing amount of litter in our borough, which corresponds to them not picking litter up outside their premises. So they've passed the expense of picking litter from business to the council. Can we pass it back again? Can we insist they have some facilities for disposal of waste on their premises? I mean, in particular, a certain fast food takeaway on the Bullhead Street Island used to employ 1 or 2 people that went around the area collecting the litter. I think that service is now finished.
Essential.
You know, perhaps we could reinstate that and give us some pressure on that when we do inspections there.
Well, thank you for spotting the typo, Councillor Carter. I'm disappointed after last time. You didn't. I'll correct that. And yes, they should. And part of the inspection is around refuse and arrangements for collection of waste and actually stuff that should apply to the site and off the site if it's a fast food takeaway.
And also pest control.
Yes, and that's something that we always check when we go around as well. Is it active? Is it current? Do you need it? What's it found? And that sort of things, yes. It's all part of the inspection process.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, again, the report is down for noting. There is nothing else on the agenda, so I thank you all for what I think has been a very good meeting and some very valid points made. Thank you and good night.